I have been waiting a long time for this, to have my primary director from Love and Restoration Ministries sharing with us. And you all know that he's my husband already, right? Right, so primary director. So today he will be here in the capacity of primary director and a counseling psychologist, Paul Smith. How are you, sir?
I am doing well, thank you, Mrs. Johnson Smith.
It took me a long time to get you to interact with us on Facebook.
Hi everyone,
Yes.
Thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes, it's so nice to have you. And you're looking good.
Well, thank you.
So today we are going to really be diving down deeply in a topic, because we know that we're living, in a time where a lot of people are hurting as a result of COVID-19. And not only COVID-19, because people had things dealing with from ages. So COVID-19 just adds to what they have been going through. And so as a ministry, we started in 2014 out of the whole issue of hurting. And so we understand what it feels like to be hurting. Isn't that so,
Oh yes.
Mr. Smith? We
Yes.
understand what it feels like. And so I don't think there is any better person or persons to discuss this whole issue of hurting. So welcome to Love and Restoration Ministries Live. And if you are watching us, tell your friends about us. And we hope that you will benefit greatly from the discussion that we'll be having today. I'm going to leave Mr. Smith to give his opening remarks.
All right, so as you rightly said, many persons are hurting. Persons hurt every day. Persons are hurting within the churches, at the workplaces. Persons are hurting because of broken relationships, broken families. It could be grief, it could be betrayal, it could be just about anything that would cause one to be in this position. And so I think it's a timely topic that we all need to just delve into and unravel all that we need to know. And I hope that you'll learn a lot from this evening's presentation.
Yes, thank you so kindly, Mr. Smith. Let me ask you something. What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is blue.
Yeah, because the people want to learn something about you. But I guess we complement each other, because mine is red and any other hot color you can think of. And so you're wearing a little bit of both of us today.
Yes.
And the alarm's color is also red as well. And I hope our viewers understand that we started in 2014, so we are 6 years old, and we are online a lot, sharing different scriptures daily. And so I have a few questions that I'm going to ask our primary director in his capacity as a counseling psychologist. And so I'm going to begin by asking him to define key terms, those of restoration and renewal. But before he does so, we are really looking at the 7 R's in restoration, because we are called Love and Restoration Ministries. And so we're looking at the 7 R's. And the first one is renewal. Recovery is the second one. Revival is the third one. Re-establishment is the fourth one. Restitution, reinstatement, and finally, reconstruction. And you're going to love the reconstruction one when our counseling psychologist talks about you reconstructing your way of thinking, and that will be some weeks to come. Alright, so I'm going to leave him now to define the key terms we'll be talking about today.
So 2 of the key terms will be restoration and renewal. Alright? So when something is restored, it is brought back to its original or previous state or condition. Right? So when someone needs to be restored, that person is brought back to what life was like before the hurt, or the disappointment, or the betrayal, right? So it is to bring back something to its original state. Then we have renewal. Renewal is to bring something to life, right? It talks about revitalization. It talks about a freshness, right? So as it relates to those who are hurting, probably a fresh approach as to how we think about things, a fresh approach as to how we deal with issues. It's like a renaissance, a rebirth, right? A rebirth of knowledge, of attitude, of aptitude, of everything that needs to be brought back to life.
Thank you. So we are bringing some life into the whole scenario today.
Yes.
And isn't that great, viewers? You know, to think that with everything that has happened, some people are grieving, and we're saying to you, you can be renewed where that is concerned.
Yes.
Now, I have another question for you, Mr. Counseling Psychologist, and I understand you're a licensed one.
Yes.
And who has licensed you, sir?
Well, I've been licensed by this called CPAM, the Council of Profession Aligned to Medicine.
Okay, so he's quite qualified to be talking about things as it relates to the mind today. So I want you to tell me, Mr. Smith, what are your thoughts on the mental impact of someone who is hurting?
Well, the mental impact, the impact is varied, and so somebody who is hurting, it all depends on the level of the hurt. But someone who is hurting, they can have sleep disturbances, they can fall into depression, right? They can fall into post-traumatic stress disorder, right? It can be a fact that it affects every aspect of their life. So some persons are highly stressed, right? And some persons, if it is not dealt with, it can lead up to all kind of mental challenges, right? But I talk about the fact that depression is one of the key ones. And if the person is suffering silently, then it can lead to depression, and you have a lot of offshoots from that. So, you know, somebody who is depressed, they might not sleep, or they might oversleep, right? They might not eat, or they might overeat. They might have poor concentration, right? And from a Christian perspective, they might be unable to pray and to fellowship, right? And they might just want to stay in and stay under the covers, stay in the darkness, don't want to see the light of day. And so the mental impact can be very strenuous on the person. And that is how deep hurt can become at times.
Right, and people need to understand this, even in the church.
In the church.
Right, because we can't jump it off or scream it off. We really have to deal with it. Right? So what then, Mr. Smith, do you think, right, is the role of, you know, restoration or renewal? What role does it play in the lives of hurting people?
Well, if we have to, even have to start with the church, you know, the church has a responsibility to make sure that those who are hurting, those who have fallen, that they are brought back into full fellowship, right? And so even in Ephesians 4 and verse 2, it says we are to be compassionate and gentle and patient with each other. Galatians 6 and verse 1 says, if someone is caught in a sin, those who are faithful, those who are strong in the faith, should restore such a person gently. We even look at Peter in the scripture. Peter had fallen, right? And the Lord Jesus had restored him. So he said, go and tell my disciples and Peter, right? And it so happens that when Peter came back to restoration, he was even more powerful than he was before, right? So restoration is an ongoing process. It is something that the church needs to be vigilant with. It's something that the family members ought to be vigilant, because if persons are not restored, persons are perpetually going to get worse, right? And so restoration brings back that person in line, brings back that person in fellowship. David too needed restoration, and David asked the Lord to restore unto him the joy of thy salvation. So restoration brings joy, it brings peace, it brings contentment.
And if you notice, he says, renew a right spirit.
A right spirit, yes.
Within me, because
Yes.
we have to have the right spirit.
Mhm.
So then, those persons who are left at the back bench
Yes.
of the church
Mhm.
forever,
Mhm.
and they stayed there because they made a mistake
Mhm.
and they might be hurting, but you know they are left there to die.
Yes.
What do you have to say about this?
Well, the unfortunate thing about it is that as Christians, we are soldiers, and we are sometimes the first to kill our own soldiers.
Yeah.
Right? So we tend to criticize, we tend to behave as if we are better than the person who has fallen, and we stay afar off, and we have a Pharisaic attitude, yeah, and better holier than thou attitude. And so instead of trying to restore persons, we kill them with what we say, we kill them with what we don't say, we kill them with criticism, we kill them and say, boy, I know it's a long time you're like that, right? And so our soldiers stay in the church and they bleed and they die. And there's no one to nurture them. There's no one to take up their hand and say, come with me. You know, I love you. I still care for you. You know, we are all sinners saved by grace. So many times that is not the attitude. So persons go to church, but they are dying. They are crying out. They are asking for help.
Help, yes. And people hide it using different spiritual
Yes, we hide it.
regimes that we have, you know. We rebuke the devil, but when we go home, we're still in depression.
To the depression.
And I think that there are persons in church who really need a big brother, a big sister, somebody to reach out to them and to say, man, you know, I love you. And I realized that even growing up in the church, that was one of the things I do. You know, I reach out to people who are hurting.
Yes.
And it's not about whether or not you're agreeing with what they're doing. Because sin is sin. But people need people.
Yes.
As a counseling psychologist, explain whether there is a need for intervention measures of the church or otherwise as it relates to people who are hurting. Intervention measures.
All right. So let me start with the church. The scripture talks about if you know that someone has an ought against you, right? That he can't be worshipped as usual, he can't be business as usual. So the person who is aware that someone has done wrong, right, should leave the gift at the altar, the scripture says, and go and find that person and talk it out, right? The leadership of the church needs to be strong on this as well. So if there are disputes among members,
yes,
right, the leadership needs to call and intervene.
Not ignore.
Mediate. Don't ignore and spiritualize it, right? And cast out demons. These are real issues that people
Deal
have,
with conflict.
right? So mediation is one strategy that must be used, right? The leader must realize as well that if he or she lacks the competence, right, to deal with issues if it escalates, then seek professional help, right, for such persons. There might even be persons within the church who are trained counselors, right, or those in the helping profession that can intervene, but at the bottom of it, it should not be ignored. It should not be swept under the carpet. It should not be spiritualized. It must be dealt with.
And I love there that you said mediation, because mediation brings in caucus.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to talk to the person first individually, and then in a group. It might be a family, or it might be church brother and church sister, and it should never be an issue where you take sides.
Yeah.
So did you know you have clans in church too?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
gang. So you have this gang against this gang, and it prevents the free flowing of the Holy Spirit because people do not deal with these issues. So I'm happy you made mention of mediation, and also you're a justice of the peace. And the Ministry of Justice has a new element of restorative justice.
Yes.
Where they feel that you come in a circle, and sometimes you can use a ball, which is the thing that you talk with, and anybody who gets it speaks, and nobody speaks unless they receive it. And so these are measures that churches can use
Yes.
to have some level of peace and camaraderie in their church relationship instead of being ignoring this thing for years.
And even as a preventative measures, churches can have programs as it relates to conflict management,
Yes.
conflict resolution, because sometimes as church, we are just not good at resolving conflict. So these are things, the psychoeducational programs that churches can take on, right? To say, I'm going to equip members, non-members, that when issues come up, these are the measures that ought to be taken.
Pretty much like a protocol like the government is having now with COVID-19, that every organization needs to do that. Every church needs to have a conflict resolution protocol, so to speak. Because if you have people around, then there are always going to be conflict issues. Whether it's church, yes or no. But over the years, people have ignored it. It really has been a pleasure talking to you.
Yes.
But you know that I can't allow you to go because you're a counseling psychologist. And I believe strongly in therapy. I believe that if people are hurting, if people are undergoing adverse circumstances, then they need to get the professional help that they need. It's not all the time that a pastor is able to do certain level of counseling.
Yes.
Because sometimes you need special help.
Yes.
What maybe is one therapeutic, because we don't want to give our viewers everything today and then you don't come back. And we thank those persons who have joined us and hope that you can be commenting, making your comments. And if you have questions, you can register those questions and we will answer them as we go. So what one therapeutic measure you can use to deal with somebody who is suffering with those things you mentioned early, depression or whatever it is? Because some people are now grieving because they've lost their loved ones as a result of COVID or crime and violence.
All right, so by extension too, based on the various cases I've seen in private practice, and some of them are Christians and some are non-Christians. But I recently had a client, she's a member of a church, but she has been hurting for years and felt as if she could not go another day without seeking intervention. And she was abused from a child, sexually abused from a child, right? And so as an adult, she realized that she could not move on emotionally because it was not dealt with, right? But in that case, the perpetrator died and she wanted closure, right? So one of the techniques that was used was for her to write a letter, an in-depth letter, detailed letter to the perpetrator, right? Expressing exactly how she feels, right?
What do you call that, bibliotherapy?
Yes, so she wrote the letter and she said exactly how she wants to feel, right? And she did it. And she was advised that after doing it, she could decide to burn the letter. And she's doing much, much better now because she, for the first in a long time, she had the opportunity to just let go, to vent exactly what she was feeling. So at the base of it is a chance to kind of vent. Because when the feelings are clogged up inside of you, it is very unhealthy. So there must be an outlet where you can express how you're feeling, right? You might want a chance just to cry for the first time and just let it out. You might want to bawl or to holler, right? But you need to be able to be in touch with your emotion, that we call emotional intelligence, right? So you need to know how you feel, how you want to feel, right? And be able to move from that point to the next.
Wow, counseling psychologist Paul Smith. But you know, I'm so happy that we are able to do this, and there is going to be a replay, and you know, persons can send in their questions for the next time that we meet. And I'm just wondering though, you know, we want to tell them a little about LARM and what LARM does and what LARM is hoping to do. And if you notice, Sir Smith, LARM has been been touching lives.
Yes.
Since we were able to give out at least some certificates of $4,000 for supermarket vouchers. And we had students from a particular high school in Manchester saying thank you, you know, for the credits that we sent to their phones as a result of our donors. You know, we have to mention Nish Bennett on Facebook, who donated to us, and so many other persons. Robert Crooks, who is a real supporter of what we do at LARM, and so, you know, it really, this is a passion of mine, and I think some books are coming out soon too, because if you notice, we've been talking about mushrooming into greatness. How do you feel about that?
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yes, and I want to say to our listeners, our viewers, that greatness lies within all of us, right? I want you to tap into that greatness and be able to mushroom, right?
Yes.
And my greatness will not be your greatness,
right,
but it is realizing your fullest potential and adding meaning to life,
yes,
right? So mushrooming to greatness, it's a must read,
yes,
it's a must see when it materializes.
And we have some videos on YouTube. You can follow us, friends, on YouTube, LARM Mushrooming to Greatness on YouTube, and like our videos, subscribe, and keep in touch with us, because we're always on Facebook, LARM Ministries on Facebook. And another thing too, that we're going to be having, you know, some of the things, because for example this week we posted the forgiveness recipe, and that is something we're going to be talking in another of the 7 hours when we join you again. So we thank you for joining us today, and now you realize that I'm really talking about somebody who you can interact with. We've got the chance to meet Mr. Paul Smith. Sir, it was nice to have you on, my primary director.
My absolute pleasure.
Yes. So friends, thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of the evening. Bless you. We love you. Mwah.